All right, welcome everyone in to the February 25th, 2026 regular board meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone in, and let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Make a motion to adopt the agenda. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I get a motion to, I guess, is there any questions about the consent agenda? Good. Okay. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll motion to adopt the consent agenda. Just ask me a question. Oh, no, sorry. Oh, good, consent, because there's no like regular agenda.
Yeah, there's the adopt agenda
Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry.
under the regular
Yeah,
board
yeah.
meeting, which I forgot last time.
Reconvene.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. So I'll second.
Second, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the next thing we have is public comment. No public comment, okay. We will go right into reports and communications update with the Director of Public Relations, Miss Lisa Gilchrist.
She's like,
Yeah.
oh, that fast.
This is exciting. Jeez.
I just have to say, I'm happy that it happens. Focus, like the focus, yeah.
Just slightly different.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead and slide.
There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm
Hello.
Lisa Gilchrist. I'm the Director of Public Relations for Meridian. So I'm just going to give a little update about my work. So I thought it'd be helpful to kind of break down some of the work I do and the elements that you see, and then kind of what do you not see. So these are a lot of the visual elements of my job that you will see. So there's social media, there's the website, there's flyers and postcards and the newsletter. I'm not a trained graphic designer. It's something I spend a lot of time working on. I work really hard at it. So when I look at some of these elements, I'm really proud of how they turned out. It's something that doesn't come naturally to me. But I think one thing that's hard to see when you look at the stickers here and the flyers and all the different pieces, you don't see the work that goes behind it. So for example, just like a simple social media post, which is maybe one of the quickest things I do, that requires finding out what's happening at a school, scheduling time to go there, observing what's happening, taking photos and coming back and going through all those photos, picking out my favorites, getting those photos cleared, being clear on what exactly happened. So getting a caption reviewed by staff, getting that figured out, and then figuring out where does this fit in the schedule? Does it go this week or next week, or does it go complementing something? So there's a lot of consideration that goes into something that feels pretty small. And I'm also thinking about how does this social media post like support our mission and goals of the district? So there's just a lot of consideration that goes into something that seems small, but it's actually really big. I did want to point out the newsletter, bottom left there in Meridian Connection. You should have just gotten it at your homes, hopefully, recently. We realized that while we have a lot of staff that live in our district, we have a lot of staff that also don't live in our district and may not be aware of all the really awesome stuff that's happening at other schools that they're not working at. And so this year we now are ordering enough copies of the newsletter to give one to each staff so they get it in their mailbox now. And I've heard really positive feedback about that people are enjoying learning what else is going on around here. I do my very best to be everywhere all the time and to celebrate everything that's going on, but there's just so much stuff going on that's fantastic and it's almost too much to cover, but I do my best to be everywhere all at once. So some of the elements of my job that you don't see, I'm also the public records officer. Last year, I estimated I spent over 100 hours of my time working on records. I processed 25 records requests in 2025. Just for reference, in 2022, I only processed one records request for the entire year. So this is something that's it's increasing over time, it's increasing in complexity and volume, and it's just a reality of the situation. So it's something that does require a lot of time, and when I am working on those, sometimes it takes away from the other parts of my job that I would like to focus on. For other things that I do that are not as visible, like staff training. So I do all the training for Parent Square. I also do training with staff about best practices for communication. I do trainings on kind of language access and that. So I'm meeting with staff that's often at the beginning of the year, or it can be throughout the year too. I'll do one-on-one training with staff as well, whatever works best for them to make sure that they're feeling good about the tools that we have. I've also done some classroom presentations, which has been really fun. I got invited to present about cameras to the TK class last year, which was really exciting, teaching them about the different cameras I use. And I also worked with the leadership class here at the middle school, teaching them about like social media best practices and also about editing videos and creating videos. It's something that they're learning how to do because they want to share the news of their school. That's been really fun to have those opportunities to get into classrooms. I also support with like strategic communication. So last year I talked in depth about the bond communications plan that I did. So that's kind of a larger communications plan, like the strategic plan, communication plan. I work on those. I also do a lot of messaging support for schools. So if you think about the reunification that we just had here at the middle school, and a very comprehensive comms plan around that, that included messaging to our whole community and then messaging just to our families at the middle school, messaging to staff and what the day looked like for them. A whole script to be read to kids day of, so they knew what to expect. We also recorded a phone call for our families who speak Spanish, and that went ahead of time. And then we also had, social media posts and postings day of, just to try and cover all of our bases to make sure that people knew what was going on. But I'm available there for principals if they need help with messaging support day of, or to send things, things come up and they need help. So I'm also working on that. Event planning and support, I created an event planning checklist for our school so that they can be thinking more about how to communicate their events, but also how to make the events more accessible. So they have just a checklist with a timeline of what to think about when. I work on a survey, so I create surveys, I draft the questions, and I do all the data analysis for surveys. So every survey we do, I read every single comment. So if you leave a response, it is being read. And then I also provide all of the technical support for Parent Square. So I provide training for staff, troubleshooting. I also support families. So I'll get a call from a parent who's like, I can't sign in, and I will talk on the phone with them and help them figure it out. So I do all of the training and support for Parent Square to make sure it's working. And I do all the website administration. So I do all the content updates for all of the websites, and I do all the security updates and everything like that too. So if there's an issue with the site, I'm also figuring out what's going on. So I want to talk about language access today. This is another part of my job. So House Bill 1153 passed in 2022. And essentially it had these elements to it, and it's so that we communicate with families in the preferred language. We've collected this information annually through Skyward for a long time. This was just kind of putting some requirements into place. Just a side note, this is an unfunded mandate. It's really important work. I really care about it, but interpretation translation services are expensive. So it's just something that's a reality. Part of the plan was to create a language access program. So that is actually a link to a webpage on our site, and it has a whole plan of the services we provide and how we make it work. We provide interpreters and translated materials. I'll talk more about that. We had to designate a language access liaison or coordinator. That's me. And then it has some staff training requirements. So staff trainings I talk about how to work with interpreters and translators and how to make sure that we're communicating with families in their home language. The graph here, I do want to talk about it for a moment. This is a breakdown of our families language. So it's like 9% for Spanish, but for our students, it's about 20% of our students speak Spanish. The language on their Mixteco, I want to reference for a moment. This is a language that's growing in our community. It's a spoken language, it's not a written language. And it's been really challenging to find interpreters to support that language. And it's just a language that is growing in Whatcom County. So one thing that's interesting about it, beyond the fact that it's spoken and not written, it also has over 60 different variations of a dialect. So you may speak one dialect of Mixteco, but you may not understand the other dialect of Mixteco. So when we're having families come here and we hear they speak Mixteco, like, well, what dialect is that? And sometimes it's hard to ask that question. So we have to ask it and like, what region are you from, to try and determine what dialect that is. So that has been a challenge that we've been working on in the last year. I also want to talk about web accessibility is something that's coming from the federal level. There's gonna be new requirements in April 2026. We're in pretty good shape already. When we redesigned the website in 2022, accessibility was in mind. So we have webs at compliant colors and fonts, our heading structures. A lot of those things have already been taken into consideration, and Parent Square, when we communicate, has a lot of those tools built in. So there will be some new things you'll notice in the next few months. Like you'll see more alternative text with social media. That's basically just explaining what's on the image. If you're not able to see it, you could read the text and know what the image has. And things like audio transcriptions with videos will be something that will be new that we'll be doing. We already do captions with videos, but audio transcriptions will be new learning. A little more about language access. I have to give a huge shout out to Alvita Troutman. She is amazing. We've made some really great progress with language access in the last few years, and Alvita is my go-to person. We talk often. I'm asking her how we can do things better, what feedback she has, what are our family's saying and thinking. And she has a huge heart for this work, and she's built amazing connections with our community. So I cannot say enough about how amazing she is. One thing that we do is she and I record messages. I give her a script. She records a message for every holiday, no school day, important announcements, and that's phone message that goes to families, and they really appreciate getting that. We've also worked really hard on hiring more interpreters. That's one thing she kept saying is we need more interpreters. So I worked really hard on hiring more on-call interpreters. Now we have 6 Spanish, 2 Russian, Ukrainian, 2 Punjabi, a Mixteco interpreter, and an Arabic interpreter. And I am really thankful through just connections with other school districts. I've reached out to them and I said, like, we have this great need for Mixteco. Do you have anyone? And we did have someone who interprets for Mount Vernon is now working for us as well. And it's been fantastic. Alvita told me at school conferences last week that she couldn't understand what the interpreter was saying, but the family's like face just lit up with joy to be able to communicate. And so that means a lot. Staff have access to Language Link, which is phone interpretation and video interpretation through Album. So those are for all sorts of languages that we don't have interpretation provided for, so that we can still provide that service for families. Some other improvements we've made, we wanted to make the experience better for families and interpreters at events. So we now have like a sign they'll say, come here for Spanish services. And then we also have name tags that say like, I speak Spanish with their name. I worked with Alvita I schedule out all the holidays in advance for the whole year. And so I was able to get her my text for the full year for holidays for social media posts, and she translated all of those. So there's more of our posts are in English and Spanish. And new this year, we are translating our menu, which has been fun for everyone. Alvita said she's really enjoyed like learning how to translate some of the items on the school menu. So that's an improvement we're making. I put the graph there at the bottom is from our CEE survey. And it says communication materials received from the school are in the language I can understand. It's been 99%, 98%, 99%, but it's not 100. So we still have work to do.
Breathe for a second.
No, we still got work to do.
Right, and I think another piece that falls in line with the accessibility that we're looking at too is getting a set of receivers and broadcast tools so that we can have translations live when meetings are happening, and looking at what other tools we have too. But that also falls within the realm of rural.
Yes, I've talked to a lot of districts across the state to ask what they're doing for events and gotten a lot of feedback. And so we're working through that and seeing what would work best for us. So it's been really helpful. I think that's one thing I love about working for a school district is people are so open and willing to share their ideas because we're all here to support kids and families. And so that's been really helpful to get that feedback from other districts. I did want to also mention we had over 100 conferences interpreted this last 2 weeks. So that was a lot of work. We had, over more than half that was Spanish, but then we also had Mixteco, Punjabi, Russian, Arabic, all interpreted. So big shout out to Alvita for scheduling those, and also Daisy Valaderas that I read as the scheduling for. That's cool. So that's a lot of work. All right, moving on from language access. Also part of my job, recognition programs. So I do a lot of recognition throughout the year, but these are just 3 of the programs I wanted to highlight tonight. New this year is our Shine and Thrive Awards, which is a spin on our Thrive Awards, which is for our annual recognition for staff. So these, it's just providing more opportunities for us to celebrate students. And these awards are all connected to our commitments. So we have, Thriving Scholars, our Learning Award, Trojan Heart Awards, Belonging, Trojan Voice Awards, Communication, Empowered Learner Award for support, and Shining Star Award for wellness. So those have been really fun. We do those every month. We go and we give the kids those certificates in classrooms. And my favorite part of this is maybe an unseen part, but I follow up and I message parents of kids who have won that day. And I write a little write-up and I give them the nomination and I give them the photo. And that has been the best because I get these awesome responses from parents who are just like, my student got home today and they were so happy and they were so proud. And just knowing like the kids have smiles on their faces all days from receiving this has been really awesome.
You sent me one of those with Jacoby one time, so.
Oh.
So yes, brightened my day, so.
Oh,
It was
good.
awesome.
That follow-up piece, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I thought they may not understand like what the certificate is, so it's helpful for parents just to be able to check in with their child at the end of the day and say, what happened at school today? And to see it and to know and understand. Yeah. So March, our Thrive Awards will open. That's our annual recognition awards for staff, and these are also connected to our commitments. So they'll be accepting nominations all month long, and then we'll be celebrating those in May. And then we have our thank you notes. I started this is during American Education Week in November. So these are electronic thank you notes, and anyone can send them. And for the last 3 years that we've done it, we've had over 500 notes submitted. So that is just awesome to see. And they're very heartwarming notes. I put a little example there in the middle of one of them, but I also help with, so we have Education Support Professionals Week coming up in a couple weeks, Teacher Appreciation Week, senior celebrations. There's just all sorts of opportunities for celebrations throughout the year, but these are just 3 of the programs. So another thing new this year, we heard from our community that they want to hear from us more often. So I now have this monthly newsletter called the MERIDIAN Monthly. This has been really fun to work on. I'm trying very hard to expand our community email list. Right now we have about 200 people on our just community list, which is great, and I'd love to grow it. So this goes all to staff, family, students in our community list every month. It's just been a really awesome way to highlight what's going on in our district. I really enjoy working on it, honestly. It's one of my favorite things to do. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Or say we talk a lot about the little things that make learning special, and you are definitely one of those. And like the stuff that you do, like the light we shine in our district is so cool.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I feel like you are like the bridge between the strategic plan initiatives. Like you brighten them everywhere, like you do these little bridges you bring everything together in such a unique way. And like how you explain the time that it takes to do some of these things that people don't know. It's really spend a lot of time, and thank you for doing that, especially like public records requests. I do those too at my job, and it's a lot of time. So thank you for doing those. It's hard. But yeah, thank you for doing all that you do. And I love the MERIDIAN monthlies.
Okay, thank you.
I think that those can be valuable as soon as we start to grow that with a lot of the community. We find some other ways to bridge those gaps too. I think that'd be great. So
Thank you.
yeah.
When do you have time to sleep?
I know.
My gosh.
She starts rattling everything off, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm exhausted.
Thank you. I think I arrive at the office and I go upstairs to my office and sometimes I don't leave all day and I think they wonder if I'm here. I go downstairs, but I just try to just be really thoughtful about prioritizing my work.
We talk about balance and being able to balance your workload. Lisa is probably the most conscious about the time she puts in and how she manages that. I think about the decision to bring her in and trying to fill a need that we were doing by committee, if you remember, Erin, and things were crisis management and messaging and things like that. And Lisa has been phenomenal, and she is a critical part of our district's operations for sure, with all the other things that you all mentioned. So,
Thank you.
You're really valuable. Thank you.
How would one sign up for the community list to be on to receive the monthly Meridian monthly?
Great question. There's a few different ways. So there's a spot on the website under the public relations section. You can sign up there. It's in each monthly at the bottom. There's a link. And I've also been posting it on social media periodically.
Okay.
And it's also the newsletter that just went out had a QR code that you could scan to join the community list.
Awesome. I'll definitely share that with our neighborhood too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for that. I had never heard of this stuff before.
All right, on to new business. First review procedure 2022P, electronic resources and internet safety. Mr. Aaron Jacoby will be here presenting.
Yeah, I'm gonna present both 2022P and 2023 kind of at the same time because they were both done through the same process.
Cool.
So both of these have to do with electronic resources, digital literacy, safety. I think over the last year and a half or so, a lot of conversation has been happening around things like AI and different things, and we didn't really have anything in our policy to address this pretty monumental shift that's happening and how it actually can apply to the work of what we do in the school. So Lisa talks about the things that she does. Lisa's been a big part of this work, and so I do have a point of recognizing her and Cynthia Richardson both for all their work on this, but we created a digital literacy advisory group that met 4 times over the course of September through January. On that committee on that group were Robert Kratzig, Sean Doffing, Cynthia Richardson, Amy Clayton, who's a parent as well as a teacher at MP3, Brett Miscavige, who's a counselor here at the middle school, Lisa, Kel, thank you, who's a parent of students at Irene Ryther, and then myself. We came to the table not wanting to get into the weeds about what this was actually going to necessarily look like in the classroom. We were creating a framework for the work that's going to come later, which is going to really involve our teaching and learning department and looking at how to provide things like professional development to our staff, the material adoptions process to figure out which tools we're going to use. And I think a lot, like James and I were talking about this earlier today, but James has said this a few times, just we didn't want to create an AI policy. We wanted to create a policy that AI fit into. I mean, we don't have a word processing or a spreadsheet policy in anything that we do, but we use them all the time in the classroom as teachers, in the office, and as kids, we use them in the classroom. So the way that we kind of went about this is we started with 2022P, which focuses on electronic resources, internet safety. This is an existing procedure that we already had. It was due to be updated anyway. So what we did was we reviewed not just our policy, but modeled WASDA policy, some information from Peninsula and Quincy school districts, and kind of sat down and looked at what did we like, what did we not like. What we found out is they're all pretty similar, really. And so the group sat down, created some language, which you can see in the markups, and kind of tried to meridianize it as well as we could. We, there were some additions, not a lot, I think in 2022, but not a lot of additions around AI. I think AI really comes in 2023 a little bit more. Which was the next step. Once 2022 P was developed, we moved on to 2023 because there's references back and forth between the two of them. This one is centers around digital citizenship and media literacy. This does specifically call out some things around AI. And there's a section specific to that in there. And then one of the things that we did, and I think I'm trying to think who it was in the group, but there was a conversation about trying to focus some of the work around the commitments and our strategic plan. And so there was a concerted effort to, when we got to the section that really focused on the local conversation, looking back at what our 5 commitments are and trying to reflect on how we can reflect those commitments in the policy. So it was actually kind of a cool process to be a part of, to have that conversation on how the framework that guides the work that we do, linking those two things together. Once that was done, we kind of went out to staff to get some feedback on some things. Staff provided a lot of input. There's a lot of widely, I know this is gonna be shocking, there's a lot of various viewpoints on the topic of AI specifically. I know that's gonna shock people. And so, you know, taking that input back to the group and talking about that a little bit more. Lisa took it to the student advisory group, got some great feedback from our kids, specifically around, you know, safety and application of the policies. I think kids know they don't know a lot about how to use some of these tools. And so I think there is a desire to make sure that they're learning how to do it correctly, which is why it's so critical that we teach our staff well with this, so that their staff can be the teachers that they are, which are strong educators. There are some student-facing documents that the committee kind of worked to put together. Those aren't a part of this. They're more things that we'll kind of use as work around. Okay, so what does it look like for a teacher in terms of like, what does the syllabus? What could a syllabus look like? What are the varying levels of artificial intelligence integration into the classroom? What does that look like? And, you know, the next steps, you know, should the policies be approved, the next step's going to be sitting down with Adrian and probably Joe a lot, and talking about what does this next step of teaching our staff how to use AI look like. I know some of the work has already started in terms of tools are out there. I mean, I know the special ed department's using a tool right now to help efficiency of work. And so having this policy is a critical piece, I think, to making that work continue and improve the outcomes for our kids, because we know that this is going to be part of their world of work when they leave us. So yeah, I want to thank the group, all those people, Lisa and Cynthia in particular, like, especially when this kicked off, my life was very interesting. And so they did a great job of making sure that we were keeping on track and getting stuff moving and going where we needed to. So are there any questions or anything that you want to add? Or
I'd like just to share, when we look at what we want to think about when we bring in tools and how we approach the work. I also want to make sure everyone knows that we don't have control over a lot of things that we already have contracts for, whether it be Microsoft or Zoom or whatever. Any given day of the week, a new version comes out with AI already embedded. And so this is one of those things. A year ago, I said, this is not something that we get to decide about. We have protections that we have to have in place and things that we need to consider. And so I very much appreciate the group and the leadership to be able to navigate this in a time when it changes all the time. So we'll keep bringing this forward when major pieces come out, but it's super important too, not to have a policy just on AI. It's technology integration, and AI is just one of the tools.
Yeah, I like the word you said, the policy that fits, that policy that AI fits into.
Yeah.
And that's not written around.
Yeah.
And growing up with so much technology that growth, but the word could be calculator, iPhone,
Internet.
right, internet. It's just a word, right, that we're having to grow with and having to learn how to adapt into our current curriculum or whatever we're doing. So it's not, it's such, some people take it like as a scary word, I feel,
Mhm.
but it doesn't have to be scary. It's just that we're just trying to adapt it into our everyday life.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate how that's written.
Yeah, and I think our kids are doing that right now.
Yeah.
Whether we wanna, whether we wanna allow our kids to use it or not, they're doing it already. So they need to have some guidance and some support in doing it in a safe and effective way. So that, I mean, again, like I have two kids, I have a 19-year-old and an almost 17-year-old. I want them to be able to use these tools successfully when they go into the world of work, because they're gonna need to. So I mean, yeah, it's a pretty important thing, I think, so.
And this policy, is this essential or discretionary? No.
Kurt,
This is a,
I don't think it's an essential, I think it's probably discretionary.
sure, I'm gonna go. Sorry.
Thank you guys for being proactive.
Yeah, one of the things we found is like, there's not a lot of districts that have done this work yet. You know, I talk about Peninsula and Quincy, and those are two of the school districts that have really been kind of out in front on this work. Which I think is interesting when you think about Quincy. Well, Quincy has a huge Amazon hub and large data centers in the area. So they have a very tech-driven community as it is. And then Peninsula's been out front on a lot of this stuff from the very beginning.
So these are both important.
So. Okay,
Thank you.
any other questions or anything?
Thank you for
Cool.
sharing.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
thanks.
Yep. Okay, next item is the Wacom Early Learning Center Facility Use Agreements presented by Dr. Jim Dever.
Okay. So this is a draft of an agreement that came to us after we were awarded $1 million from Washington County Health Department for the Early Learning Center. And part of the vision of the Early Learning Center was to serve up to 100 students birth to 5. And in the effort to obtain the $12 million to build it without tapping into local tax dollars, there was an opportunity to revise the Early Learning Center, because the new request for proposals from the county, from the Healthy Children's Fund, was to put together hubs which would address early learning, childcare, and also mental health. And so we revised our design and applied for a grant and increased the capacity and added a couple of mental health offices and some conference rooms. And so when we were awarded, the county was doing their due diligence to make sure that they had access to the facility that they're funding, at least partially. And so this is after a lot of negotiations, and what we have is a lot of legalese around what access that the county can expect in terms of providing mental health supports and access to 15 hours a week for a conference room. And then the Early Learning Center's aspect of the skill center is to have an adult classroom for high school students that will house up to 24 students for 2.5-hour sessions up to 3 times a day. And they wanted access to that adult classroom. And so what we negotiated is, after our high school students use that space, they can have access to it. So the whole reason for the Early Learning Center was to create a space where we could address both the childcare need as well as help with workforce pipeline and be able to give our students firsthand access. And so we protected that in this agreement. in preparing the draft, one thing that we discussed is what kind of health support could be provided. So I was unable to reach anybody. So what I can tell you is I will seek some bumpers around. I think that the request is to ensure that there isn't medical types of health. And so I'll have some dialogue with them and I plan to be able to bring back a revision for when we come to ask for approval so that see if that then we can talk more. But that's a one request that I have, but I didn't want to pull it off. That would be one thing that I would bring to your attention. We'll bring it the next time.
Yeah, so in our discussions, it was just, I feel like this needs to be a little more defined. Like even the word county, county has a lot of options, a lot of departments. And so I think more clearly defining the scope, I think would help. So that was my only pushback for feedback.
You bet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions at all?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Okay, the next item is Learning Assistance Program. And this will be Dr. Kurt Harbill presenting.
Aaron.
Great.
Good afternoon, I guess good evening.
I'm
Light
glad you're on fun.
outside, so I was confused.
Nice.
All right, so we have 3 policies for the board. These are all first review policies. And oh, there we go. So the first policy is a revision that WASDA made to 2108 Learning Assistance Program. It's a critical policy. And it's update to existing. WASDA, as you're aware, produces a monthly or a quarterly magazine, and in it, it gives your update and it tells you why. For this update, WASDA just put update. And what they did is they removed the language during COVID. LAP is traditionally used for math, reading, behavior, and so it's pretty specific. And during COVID, they expanded the ability of us to use LAP dollars. And so this, now that COVID has passed, they are removing that language. And so that is the major change for this policy.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, the next policy, 3226. This is one that we mentioned at the last board meeting, that we were gonna bring forward. This is an encouraged policy. It's an update to our existing. We updated the policy, I believe, in March of 25. And for whatever reason, we didn't update the procedure. So that was on me. And WASDA basically revised this policy to align with House Bill 1296. And that bill is also known as parent rights. And so they made changes to the policy. The actual policy, the only change they made was they referenced the RCW relating to the parent rights. In the procedure, they made changes in each of the areas where it talks about students being interviewed for various reasons. And the overall language changed. It was administrator will notify parents at a reasonable, convenient time. The language has changed to will immediately notify the parent or guardian about the interview unless the parent or guardian has been accused of abusing or neglecting the students. So the language really cleaned up. And then if a parent, the other part that they did is if a parent or guardian is not present for the interview, the principal or designee will be present if the student or law enforcement or other services request their presence. It used to be and so they modified that to or. So this is in direct line to the House Bill 1296. And then the last update. And so as we talked about previously, there's a variety of reasons we update Often we update them because WASDA. Sometimes we update them because we get legal guidance to update them. And so recently we were referencing 3141, which is our non-resident students. So this governs our students who attend Meridian School District, but who do not live within the district. And so this is a critical policy. It's an updated to an existing, and during a recent process, we were advised by our legal counsel to include in the policy, it talks about why a student can be accepted or denied upon application. We as a district have used that same criteria when we rescind a choice transfer, but it wasn't documented. So we were able to verbally say,
In the policy.
it was not yet written in the policy. So we were able to verbally say, these are the criteria we use when we choose or when we are working around rescinding. But the recommendation was to include the language in the policy. And so,
Per policy XYZ.
yep. And so it says, you know, it says in there, we added the language about revocation of acceptance. And it says, MSD can revoke a choice transfer if the student fails to meet the standards described in the reasons for rejecting a student non-resident enrollment. And then the other part is the process we will follow and the notification to the parents, and then their appeal rights. So that is the major change to this policy.
And it's rare when that happens. And I think it's also important to know we have 25% of our student enrollment is choiced in, and only 7% choices out.
And that says something about our district, that students want to be here. And are willing to, we don't transport students beyond our district boundaries. So that says something to parents that they're willing to transport their students here. Or arrange with transportation to get them here, so. It's a big representative of the teams and the services our principals provide. So, yeah. Questions? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right, next item is the move on to old business. Confirmation of MYS graduation date.
So we typically do this in March. But I looked at AccuWeather. It's been awfully warm. And we're taking a gamble because our senior families love to know sooner than later. So the recommendation is to ask for approval so that we can publish that graduation is actually targeted June 3rd, whatever's in the calendar, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
June 3rd. Okay. Let's do it. Like some.
So making sure I'm on my calendar.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah. Awesome, right, so. Yeah, can I get a motion to approve the Meridian High School graduation date?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-26 calendar update.
Thank you.
I will second.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Thank you.
June 3rd it is.
June 3rd. Next up, we have Daniel Yorkton.
Hello.
Finance.
How you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Family good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just living the dream.
There you go.
Okay. Small. Try to do it without breaking it for James. What? Yeah.
Oh, without breaking it.
Yeah.
Joe's still here.
Yep, yep. Okay, so January, enrollment up to in the core program from December, MP3 was flat. Special ed was up 7. ECAP and TK are pretty leveled out at this point. And then, running start was up 3 and dropout or engagement up 1. And then compared to budget, in January, we're up 6 in the core program, up 7. In MP3 for a total of 12. Special ed's been up quite a bit this year. We're up 28. And flat in the ECAP. And running start, we've also had a lot of enrollment in running start this year. And this is the January finances. This budget projection report. The enrollment percentage that we received was 8.5%. The one thing to note is from September through December, the apportionment money that we receive is based on how we budget. Budget enrollment and other factors. In January, OSPI squares this up. There wasn't much change this year, so like all of our state revenues netted out to us getting additional $50,000 from September to January. So not a significant change, but it's positive, so that's always good. It's up here in the top in the green, you can see kind of a snapshot of the enrollment trending that we have. The purple is our beginning fund balance, 3,628,000. And then there's all these various revenue streams coming in. There wasn't anything standing out in January as far as district revenues. We received 2,579,000 right here in the blue. On the expense side, total expenditures were 2,938,000. Salaries are a bit higher in January because there's a couple of cash outs that occurred, vacation cash outs. And then for accounts payable, it was about at the average. Yeah,
Somebody cash out on their vacation.
there's only specific employees that can cash out. It's basically executive directors have that in their contract. The only other time there's a vacation cash out is when you have a 260-day employee that leaves the district, which we did in January. And he had a pretty significant leave balance when he left. So we're working on a policy to limit the amount that when an employee leaves that they can cash out. We've got a draft right now, but we're working through that. Just to kind of financially protect the district when employees do leave, so it isn't too big of a hit. Yep. I always like to point out, this is a good indicator, looking at this budget percent at the bottom. Where we would trend if we were spending equally throughout the year and spending the whole budget, we would expect it to spend about 41% of our budget. We're at 39. Which is good. That it's just like a quick way, if those numbers ever flip flop, it means we're probably in pretty big trouble. And then we need to make some shifts.
Not only is it in the right direction, it's 2.5%.
Yeah, and we've been
pretty narrow recently.
I think over the last couple of years, just staff across the district have done a very good job of taking that message that funds are tight within the school district and really just spending on what we need to. And, in the accounts payable area, we've done a good job of reducing costs there. Our ending fund balance is in the yellow, 3,269,000. pretty quick report tonight. Any questions? Okay, cool.
I know, like, you got our fund balance over 3 million is what we're after, so we're right in there. This is great.
Yeah, it is. It just feels a lot more comfortable this year than the last couple of years, or it was. You know, something broke, we're not gonna go out of business. We're not gonna go into binding conditions. Or a couple of years ago, when that fund balance was low, it was like. A little bit of walking on eggshells just to. Make sure nothing went wrong. And we spent a lot of work building that back up. This year, so it's nice to have where it should be.
Yeah, you can tell your cadence when you walk in here is a little different.
Well, less stressful, yeah.
So,
We put in a lot of procedures to really ratchet down and just make sure our spending was within the revenues that we received. We're budgeting now and, kind of starting that whole process over. We're pretty deep into it. I don't know if you guys saw the state did. Their, the House and the Senate budgets came out on Monday and they're both showing reductions to schools, specifically in early learning.
Yeah.
So we're watching that and now it feels like we're fighting to stay where we were and instead of maybe a fight to get a little bit more money. So that part of the budgeting is a bit discouraging because we had 2 pretty heavy years of reductions and I was really hoping we wouldn't be there again, but you know, at this point, we're pretty good at it and we're gonna have a budget that is sustainable.
Well, I know we appreciate everything that you do, so keep us on the right track. So thank you.
Thank you.
Right, next up is the superintendent's report with Dr. James Everett.
So. Oh, let's see here. It's easy. Uh-oh.
It's like on scroll mode or something. Still wrong. Oh, you have to.
So we're scrolling.
We're scrolling.
We're not roll.
She shouldn't. I'll scroll.
All right. And concentrate on what I'm gonna say. So, first, it's a lot, you know, it's been 3 weeks since we met last, so there's a lot that's happened. And, amazing, our athletic team, the wrestling team. As a former wrestling coach, to be able to go down and watch wrestling and then worked out that we have an administrator that was supporting the wrestling tournament that got me access to the floor. So I had 7 hours of just being in the rope top area. It was outstanding, and to see Rhett go through his and just they changed the format a little bit. And typically it's tough competition. And so if you make it to the second day, it's really a big deal. And so this year, more wrestlers, the way it was designed, wrestled the second day. And every time you turn around, there was a wrestler on a different mat. It was fun. It was fun. And, both boys and girls did really well. And then also the drama club put on Little Mermaid. And because I was in Seattle, I did not go to this, but several people in our office and otherwise talked about positive elements. So it's really great to see how involved our kids are in different things than we have. For sure. Thank you. So a little bit of report on my role with AASA as a liaison with WASA. I went down to Nashville for the national conference, and then Dr. Harville came a day later because I had this meeting ahead of time. And really this year it was looking at some of the policy changes within AASA and also identifying just what steps were being taken by the current administration to dissolve the Department of Ed and have labor take over distribution of funding to the states. And so that was much of what was going on. And then when Kurt arrived, we spent much of the time going to sessions around safety and also how is AI being utilized. And some of our Washington colleagues were presenting. And we also had Michelle Whitney, who is the superintendent of Pasco, is the superintendent of the year for Washington. All 50 superintendents are there as they select the superintendent of the year for ASA. So for superintendents in the field, this is a conference that's pretty important to network and be among people who are leading districts to see the work that's being done. And so really appreciate the board supporting our ability to go share what we're doing, but also see what else is happening. Any questions on that piece? Okay. And then the next item, this has been something that's been mumbled. When Whatcom County Sheriff's Office secured the office building on Risex Way, which is in Cordata area, 4 miles away from us, there was speculation would they be moving their office out of our campus. And so they've been housing a North County office. Gosh, Daniel, 7 years? Yeah, it's been 7 years. We engaged in 2 5-year leases. But I did receive a letter. It's in the administrative view on board docs for you. Really nice letter conveying appreciation for the relationship and collaboration with the district. And I responded on behalf of the board and the district in email format to thank them for their presence. I can remember a particular vehicle going through the front doors of the high school, and within minutes there was a deputy over there with Kurt and I trying to figure out what was going on, and many other things that just even their presence as a deterrent has been. And then the other piece that will help, we will manage moving this portable somewhere. We haven't discussed it, but we'll manage moving this portable. But that will increase the footprint for us to navigate what we're going to do with the early learning center, because we do have quite a congestion point where MP3 and the high school egress and congestion on Laurel is not healthy. So being able to maybe rethink how that all plays out is going to be maybe a blessing that it's just coming together. So a little bit of an era ending here. An update on admin council meetings. So all of the sending school districts that belong to the Northwest Current Technical Academy superintendents serve on the admin council. They have a general advisory council for the programs that they have. So people in the industry, whether it be welding, firefighting, vet, meet to talk about what it is they're doing in their programs. But the admin council is superintendents. And so we meet once a month to every 6 weeks. And so they changed the meeting. It used to be a lunchtime meeting, and so now they've switched it up. And so we went at 8 o'clock in the morning and got to see our students down there, because by the time we go for a lunchtime meeting, they're done on the bus and back up here by 11. So it was fun to go and see. We did classroom visits and see some of our students in different places. One of the big ones was video design, and we have a pretty strong contingent down there. So it was good to see that. We reviewed other programs, and then what I can tell you is if we get enough enrollment, we are in a position right now to host early childhood learning here at Meridian campus, hospitality and tourism, allied health, welding, open doors, and should put fire science on there because that's also still there too. So we do not currently have early childhood learning or hospitality and tourism, but we do have the others. So it's good. It's good to provide those opportunities for our students because they instantly get grad pathways and certification, college credit. So. Part of what you saw Lisa share, she does such a phenomenal job around recognition. I have been visiting classrooms, and how we've approached it is I'm visiting a classroom from each grade level, and I'm mixing it between our traditional schools as well as MP3. And so sometimes I'll be at MP3 for a grade level, and sometimes I'll be at one of our traditional buildings. And Angie and Lisa conspire to make sure that I'm at the right place at the right time. Students in the classes always put together questions for me, which a lot of times center around why do we have what we have for lunches, and how do we get to change menu items, or what's my role and what do I do all day? And I always start with a lot of adults don't know what I do all day, so it's okay to ask. And we have a good conversation, and we talk about what it is that they're learning. We talk about the strategic plan in as much as the commitments are stated and, you know, I was in a fourth grade classroom. It's 2 days ago, right? It's been a blur. And the question was around a belonging, and so asking the students, have a conversation with someone next to them and, get some feedback, and one of the first responses, was a boy. He said, you know, I really wish that my teacher called on me more in math, because I think I know the answers and I wish they would call on me. And that was an interesting way for him to say, I feel good when I'm recognized, right? And so, these are good conversations, and it's fun for me to be in the room with children. That's not typically what I get to do. So, and these are 20/25 tests. These aren't long business. That's the latest. I have these on here. They're long. I'm not going to read them, but I just wanted to hear from our principals. After COVID, we stopped doing conferences in October. We recognize that it's really important to elevate the status of our families and have conferences right away when we come in. And then early on second semester. And so it's this second semester piece about what we learned at the beginning of the year is what's important for your child and how you can help us understand that. And then this is what we learned on our own, and we're checking in on that. And not every building does conferences with every student. The high school concentrates on students who are struggling by far. And we always encourage during conference time that there isn't any 2 weeks that a parent has to wait for to reach out and talk to a teacher or to, they can contact them anytime. But some really great comments from our principals about what they're seeing around interactions with families and students. So I know you've already read them, but they're in there. We did have a contingent of students that walked out. And these students were well organized. They created an Instagram account and so this is what we're planning to do. And they started the plans about 2 weeks earlier. So we had a really good sense of what our students were thinking about. And they were checking in with our principal at the high school, Mr. Doffing. And what you saw from Lisa today was also what she does when she communicated with the community about being able to uphold students' First Amendment rights and freedom of expression, and also what we have a responsibility to do to keep our students safe. And so, working with principals, working with Dr. Harville and discussing how to communicate that. We had about 80 students that went to the corner for 5th period, and I think half came back for 6th period, and the others didn't. And those who were marked absent, or parents were called, and it felt a little bit like a non-event for us, but not so for the kids. And it is a part of our democracy to be able to share what you feel about something. And so, as Mr. Doffing said, they demonstrated passion and maturity. So proud of our students for that.
Yeah, I was happy that it wasn't a big to do, if you will, like it was for some other districts and other communities. It was short stint of time. They were polite. They used their voice the way it was supposed to be used, and then they went back or did one about themselves.
Yeah, as to how they conducted themselves, what I feel was a large factor is the dialogue and the respect that Mr. Dopping and our students have established for themselves. And again, a 2-week period of time of wanting to be able to do something that's not typical, and then being permitted to do so in a way that honored them and still told them we have responsibilities that are important on our side as the adults in the system. So appreciate those comments.
But what, I did have one question, and we can address this at another time too, but just maybe we can follow up with it. Is when a student is absent or an unexcused absence, are they allowed to come back to school during the middle of the day?
Depends on what the circumstances are.
Okay.
So we have specific reasons why someone could be absent, and then, we can talk about what those are.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and then just for, I guess, just like safety wise, you know, I guess we knew where they were, but even while they're at the corner, could something safety wise, you know, be brought back, unsafe wise, be brought back to school with them? And we not know about that, or, you know, just something to that effect.
Certainly, and we have students just to provide more context, we have students that come and go for the skill center.
Sure,
We have kids who have different schedules where they're coming and going for running start. They go through a procedure, they have to be buzzed in, they have to sign in, and so.
I mean, I'm sure it could happen to go to the doctor's appointment.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So-
So we manage kids coming and going and all that.
Yeah.
Good question. So it's a common wondering, but we do manage kids coming in and out a lot. It's different when we went to school.
Yeah, right? I mean, I think we got to go up to the corner to go to Mexican restaurant. There was Mexican right across the kitty corner,
Yeah.
and we could go at lunch and come back for $1.92 for an enchilada. You know, but now those were the days,
It was $30 for the day.
right?
Two more. Early learning program visits. So as I shared, the early learning contracts, we've already hired and you've approved our architect, the Dykeman, and they have started. We had our third meeting today, Kurt. We're at third meeting, visioning and design. And so part of that is going to visit other early learning centers and seeing what they've considered and what materials they use and how they've established. And so we ended up going to both the Belleville School District office. They have a 2-classroom early childhood center there. And then we went to the Barclay Center that YMCA has. And they have, do you remember the amount of students? They have 7 classrooms. Do you remember how many students? About 100 students, I think.
Not remember the student total.
Okay. The difference is that the Barclay Center does serve infants, and so we will have infant to or birth to 5, and so it was good to see that. The other thing that we're super excited about is we have directors of early learning centers that are on our design team. We have Whatcom County, Chuckanut, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club. They all have been a child care coalition. They've all been members that have been in attendance at least 2 of those meetings. They also are very busy, so trying to find spots. And we're excited on March 19th, we'll be going down to the Edwin Pratt Center, which is part of the Herring Center out of UW on child development. And they have some really, I've been there before in anticipation of this ever happening, and they have some really great structures that they've got built in. So that'll be one more trip that we take. And then our 4th meeting will be next Thursday. And then finally, I'm just going to turn it over to Dr. Harble and discuss the excellent reunification drill that we had on the 20th.
Thank you, Doctor. So on Monday,
23rd.
23rd, yeah, Monday,
My
23rd,
apologies.
we did a reunification drill at the middle school. And kudos to Lisa, kudos to Robert, kudos to the entire safety team. But Mr. Kratzig started the drill at 9. Students evacuated to the field at about 9:10. Students started loading buses, I want to say 9:24. And the drill was complete. We used 9 buses. We evacuated all adults and students from the middle school. Took them on, they loaded specific buses. The buses went out to Smith Road, over to the guide, up to the pole, and then came back to the middle school. And they offloaded the buses one by one. We had our safety team out guiding them by grade. And so the 6th graders were in the small gym. 7th graders were on the west side of the big gym, and the 8th graders were on the east side of the big gym. We had all the buses returned, all adults and students accounted for by about 10:10.
Wow.
the communications that Mr. Kratzig and Ms. Gilchrist did just kind of set the tone. Staff were calm, students were calm. It was like we've done it before. And that is the first time, to my knowledge, Meridian has done that as a district. So it was great to see, good to see processes. We had a gentleman from Linden who was on their safety team. He was observing with us. And so he had some feedback, and then he took back a lot of feedback to his school. And they'll be working on one as well. And then we will be working on the same process, but for the MP3 district office and high school campus. And then in May, we'll be working on a similar process for all of IRE. So it was good to see. It's always been one of the questions we've had of what is that timeline of getting, if we have to evacuate a building and reunify, what is the timeline on getting drivers here? What is the timeline on getting our students there? So during the reunification, we also had a contingency plan if we had students arrive late. And so we had 2 students arrive during the drill. One of them hung out with the safety team, and then one of them arrived early enough that he went with his class. Also during the drill, the high school had a fire alarm.
Oh my gosh.
And so the high school was evacuating for an unplanned fire alarm while we were doing a planned evacuation here. So, but we released Taylor to go to the high school. And so it was good to see.
So, thank you. So a little more context. When we do drills, and we're required to do drills, whether it be earthquake or fire or any of that. Reunification is when we talk about, okay, the one we can talk about pretty easily is there's a gas leak and we need to evacuate everybody. But the other one that we talk about is catastrophic, and that is if there's a shooter situation or something of that nature. Anytime, being where we are in proximity to the border, if there is something in crisis, we know the events that happened in Ferndale or Blaine, there will be a ton of response. And so what we didn't have in this is a lot of other vehicles, right? Or other agencies coming in and wanting to take over. But I've been involved in several systems over my 30 years, and I haven't been in a district where we've actually drilled reunifying, where we take a whole campus and evacuate and then bring them back in. And so was it 2 years we did the other one with the countywide?
Yeah, 2 years ago, we had a countywide reunification process. Then we hosted it at the high school. But Ferndale, Nooksack, Linden, I think all county schools were there, either participating or observing.
And that drill was essentially after the students had been either moved over or had been brought back. It was how to then reunify them with their parents. Right, so it was that piece, so 2 different parts, so
2 different parts.
super proud of the work, and then really leading for the county, and so now we'll do the other buildings, and then I know you have some other districts interested in coming as well.
Yeah,
so.
And the sheriff, I had communications with the sheriff just on, hey, this is happening. And we have asked them to either observe or advise or participate at our next one in some level. So the goal is to really partner with them. But the first one, there's a concerted effort of, can we do it? And we showed that we can. So
I think it's not if this happens, it's when. We've talked about that, not either catastrophic or natural disaster to some degree. And I'm just so grateful that we're preparing. I think that all parents will be thankful for that we just work for thinking forward and not being reactive.
Agreed.
And then a couple of pieces. I don't have dates for these. These are ongoing. These are multiple dates, but we've started the budget process, as Daniel talked about. After trips to Olympia, conversations with our local legislators, letters. We still see that the legislature is balancing the budget on the backs of kids. And it's disgusting. And so we see TK is being cut by 25% and moved into income need, which is exactly what DCYF has for requirements on ECAP. So all of the allegations of districts trying to compete with early childhood centers is now going to be true because of the way that they have reclassified TK funding. And the difficulty is it was built to address a need for kids that had an educational need but didn't meet that income threshold. So thankfully the legislature said we'd use levy funds to pay for that, which they also, well, yeah, well, they're not giving us enough funding,
Yeah,
right? So and I was being a smart aleck, sorry.
yeah.
And so they also cut back on LEA, which is local effort assistance. So that is a circumstance when districts comparatively across the state do not have assets in their district. They get support from the state because they don't have the capacity to generate as much local funding. They've cut that as well. And they've also pushed depreciation value schedules. Instead of 13 years, it's now going to take 15 years. And I should say, all of those are proposed budgets. It's not passed, but both houses have those provisions. And so some version of that is likely to go through. So anyway, we're starting budgeting. And then the other piece is bargaining. We're bargaining with both our unit groups this year. We have had really great relationships and communication with our bargaining groups, and we end those processes with it being an agreement. So we work well together. So we're working on that. We have a Meridian Middle School career fair on Friday. And so if you're in the area, we have a lot of local groups that are hosting tables, and I believe we have our own table. Lisa will be there sharing what's going on. I'm going to be heading back to Nashville for the risk pool. I sit on the board there, so that's their national association. And then we have a waiver day on the 6th, and that is non-student day. We have our building leaders are leading those staff development days. And also on the 6th, I have a superintendent's advisory council meeting with the ESD in Anacortes, where we have our student board members and special ed directors are going to convene. And I think we'll have different things happening, but this will be the second year that school board student representatives will be able to participate with other district school board student representatives, because it's pretty isolating for them, and they're typically just 2 in a district. So getting all of them together in ESD has been good. And then we're set to come back here on March 11th. And it's March 11th that we have the history day at Fort.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's just going to be adjacent to us here. So
Oh, good.
okay. That's what I have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No student board representatives. Any information from board directors?
I just want to share how proud I am of our high school students and thank Mr. Dolphin for what he handled their walkout on Friday. It was really encouraging to see, and said it seemed like a non-issue. It wasn't really a big event. The kids got to speak their part, and so super glad.
Sure that open. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay,